What's up, Barnhill family, and welcome back to your home for all things combat sports.
Yo.
Guys, you got one more week of me. Steven's still currently traveling, but we got 5 great topics for you. You can check out the timestamps if you want to see what they are. But Nick, let's start with Ankalaev versus Pereira 2, UFC 320's main event. Just your first takes on it and all that.
Yeah, this fight is a lot of fun. And it's a rematch, so of course people are drawing the conclusion of Ankalaev is going to go out there and beat Pereira worse than he did the first time. He's been able to feel the power. He knows where Ankalaev shines, and he knows how to disrupt his game plan. This one to me seems a little bit more interesting because of the amount of time that's been between the fights, right? We haven't seen Pereira in a long time, and this has almost felt like the longest break of Chama forever. And I'll be honest, whenever he was just constantly fighting, it was almost like he never went out of the news cycle. There was always something going on, even if it's just his coach filming him doing something cool, like shooting a bow and arrow, a soccer ball with a bow and arrow, whatever it is. He's always in the news. But this has been the longest time we haven't really had anything to say about Powhatan in quite some time. Now, I'm not of the nature that everybody seems to think Ankalaev is just going to go in there and beat him easier and even faster than he did last time. Pereira did give him some things to worry about. He had his respect early on, and of course that respect started to fade later into the fight, but not fully, because if it did, Ankalaev probably would have pushed on the gas a little bit harder and looked for the finish. He knows Pereira's dangerous all the way until the final bell, and he wants to win fights more than anything. He doesn't care about adding to a highlight reel or getting the best knockout at the 2025 UFC awards or MMA awards. He wants to win, defend his title, and keep building legacy. And that's why I think it's an interesting fight, because I don't know if Ankalaev has enough respect for Pereira's power to play the same match, or if he's going to go, look, I didn't get a whole lot of respect last time I beat this guy, so I'm going to go out there and double up, really try to put a statement on this. I lean towards more, let's just win this fight, because Pereira does have one-shot KO power. He can shut the lights out on anybody at 205. And I really think that if Ankalaev goes out there and is hesitant at all, Pereira will come in with a few new wrinkles or a few new attacks that he might look for. Because, look, Pereira might not be the fighter that Ankalaev is in mixed martial arts, but when it comes to striking, he still is one of the highest level guys in the UFC. So he obviously came into the Ankalaev title fight the first time with limited weapons. And I don't know if that's because he chose to bring in a few weapons, but it was mostly sitting around all night looking for the lead hook. He was also trying to beat the calf up, but Ankalaev did a pretty good job at noticing that. And then as the fight went on, he made that less and less effective. I just feel if Pereira doesn't start mixing it up, and instead of waiting for counter strikes, start to bring the offense himself, he will find himself low on the scorecards again. And then we're basically going to look at the exact same fight where Ankalaev wins a five-round victory, unanimous decision, or Pereira says, you know what, I'm going to risk it all for the biscuit in these last couple rounds. I'm going to go out there and try to get this belt back. If that happens, I could see a late finish happening. But I don't know which side of the game Pereira is going to come in on. You know, we've seen Pereira. He's been active, but I wouldn't necessarily say it's exclusively to the training room. We've seen Pereira out there. He's on movie sets. He's doing cool things. He's at every UFC event, right? He's always on the camera. So I wonder if that's affected his training camp at all. And one other thing I'll just mention is Ankalaev. I haven't seen him on any movie sets. I don't really see him, cage side at any of the events. So I don't know if he's just locked away in a room in Dagestan perfecting this game plan and coming out to make a statement.
Exactly.
But there's a lot to unpack on that one, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on it.
Yeah. I agree. And I don't think it really has as much to do with how Ankalaev changes in this fight as it does Pereira changing in this fight.
Okay. If
he does bring that early pressure, which it seemed like he was kind of timid in the first fight, in the beginning of it, throughout the whole fight pretty much, but if he does bring that, he's got to be prepared for Ankalaev to also start bringing the more so grappling aspect and trying to get him down, because he's not going to want to stand with a more ferocious Pereira on the feet.
Great point.
And so if he does want to go that route, he's got to also work on the takedown defense and how to deal with Ankalaev on the ground. And so that's kind of my take on it. Yeah,
it's a great point. And we didn't see a whole lot of grappling in the first fight. I believe that if Ankalaev starts to deal with a bit of adversity on the feet, he will look for those takedowns and likely find them. Pereira is very good at keeping his range, but at times we see him get backed up. At times we see him get tall. And usually if somebody's able to throw a few shots that can seem to be effective right to your head, that opens up your chance to change levels and shoot in. And I think Ankalaev, even though he's not as much of a grappler as a lot of the Dagestani guys, and he's not really the type to change levels and shoot in, he will look for tie-ups. He will find his way inside if he doesn't like what he's seeing on the feet. What was interesting and alarming, if you're a Pereira fan, is he was totally content with staying on the feet with Alex the whole time. And that was sort of the thing. It's like, and that was sort of weird too, because I saw everybody saying before that fight, Ankalaev is just a grappler and Pereira is just a striker. Pereira is pretty much just a striker, but Ankalaev does most of his work on the feet as well. So he, just because he's got no mustache and he's got the beard of a grappler, doesn't mean that's exactly what he does. So I think that's a great point. And I assume we will see more grappling in this fight. Now Pereira, he's obviously a black belt now. He got that off one of his greatest knockouts, but we'll see how he deals with it. But I really think offense is the key if Pereira wants to win this fight.
Yeah, and speaking of grappling heavy fighters, the co-main event probably will be, safe to say, about 23 minutes of grappling if Merab has his way. What are your early takes on that?
Well, I love that. And we might not see any grappling in the main event, but for sure we will see some in the co-main event. And I'm excited because Merab Dvalishvili has proven to be the absolute machine of the bantamweights. I don't think anybody can say, unless they're going off nostalgia and pure legacy, that Merab isn't the greatest bantamweight of all time. I mean, his resume is insane. The fact that he waited around in the top of a stacked division for his friend to either lose the belt or move up was, he's a gentleman through and through. So Merab obviously deserves the credit of a high-level champion who is just dominating his division. And once you feel like you've got nobody else that can really contest for that belt, I mean, we got Sean out of the way, who's a great striker. Umar, who is a great striker and a great grappler. You've got the entire list of 9 or 10, 11 people that he beat on the way to the belt. He fought a myriad of talented fighters with different skill sets, and he's beat them all. So I'm really interested to see how Cory Sandhagen can shake things up a little bit. And if there is anybody that can shake things up against Merab, it would be Cory Sandhagen. Now, he gets compared to Sugar Sean a lot because they are such dynamic strikers, and you never know what to expect when they're on the attack. But I would take it a step further and say that Cory Sandhagen is even more of a dynamic striker. And while maybe he doesn't have quite the record or the resume that Sugar Sean has just yet, it's safe to say some of his more dynamic strikes and the creative stuff he comes up with is more detrimental than what Sugar Sean throws at his opponents. The jump knee is what everybody sees Cory Sandhagen. He can find it on anybody. He no matter what the range is, no matter who he's fighting, he always seems to find his jump attacks, his knees. And then the other aspect of Cory's game that is overlooked generally, and part of that has to do with the Aljamain Sterling performance he had, is his grappling. Cory Sandhagen is a fantastic grappler, and moreover, he's a fantastic scrambler. He's really good at moving around, and before the wrestler or the dominant grappler, the takedown artist, can get to their position, he's scrambling, he's creating reversals, he's doing Granby rolls, all sorts of things he can to get himself free. I like to say this as an analogy. If you're a fisherman and you want to take a picture with a nice fish you caught, well, it's kind of hard 10 seconds after you pull him out of the water because he's still fighting you like crazy, right? I think of that as grappling. If you're the guy and you're fighting a grappler and he shoots in on you and tries to hold you down, you got to work like a fish trying to get back into the water, not one that just died before they took the picture, right? So Cory Sandhagen does that really well. Like, he's gonna scramble, he's gonna move, he's not gonna make it easy for you to get a dominant position or grip on him. And I think the fact that Merab Dvalishvili is a very pressure forward dominant grappler, he doesn't exactly look for submissions, he looks for damage and control time. That may open up some space for Cory to either get up from the bottom, create some scrambles, create some reversals. And then the other aspect that people aren't really thinking about is, yes, Cory Sandhagen has been submitted by Aljamain Sterling, and no, nobody thinks Aljamain Sterling is a better fighter than Merab Dvalishvili, except for Merab. Merab would tell you that all day long. Yeah. But I really think that Merab's downfall in this fight, the only reason I see Cory Sandhagen having a real legitimate shot is because Merab is not such a submission ace. He can submit the highest level fighters in the world, but he doesn't generally look for it. Yeah. Sometimes we see guys like Cory Sandhagen who are long and lanky. They know how to use that the wiry limbs to hold people and create space and angles. Those guys can give trouble to the top dominant fighters. So I'm not really going to give my prediction yet because we have a couple weeks until this fight comes out. But I think people will probably be able to tell by the tone of my voice in this breakdown which way I'm leaning. Yeah. But I will say Cory Sandhagen absolutely has a real shot at getting this belt from Merab. I think styles make matchups. And even though Merab has shown us he can beat every style at bantamweight, he hasn't quite met somebody like Cory Sandhagen.
Yeah. And you have to think too that Cory Sandhagen's last fight was against a guy named Umar Nurmagomedov.
Yeah.
And now correct me if I'm wrong, anybody, if that wasn't his last fight. I'm pretty sure it was. Yeah. But went to decision. I don't think he's had a loss be a stoppage since the Aljamain one.
Yeah,
right?
I don't think so.
And that's what Merab has to worry about is every round starts on the feet.
Yep.
And so you're going to get him down and then not finish him in a round. You know, the next round will start. Don't tire yourself out. And I know that's stupid to say about Merab. He's the cardio machine. Yeah. But the dynamic striking could be a problem at the beginning of each round, especially in 4 or 5. You know, you really got to be careful because of the it was the 5th round, right? Sean O'Malley found that shot to the body on Merab. You know, if Cory can find something like that, it's one of those. That's why I kind of like to lean a little bit towards Cory, that he might be able to do something different.
Yeah, well, and he's such a good striker with his when it comes to creativity. He's able to game plan and set up traps to put his opponent right in, and then he can exploit them with something pretty brutal. Again, I keep pulling up the jump knee. That's such an effective move for him. Obviously, Merab knows to look out for that, but at the same time, fighters build tendencies. If you are a grappling heavy guy, you tend to change levels when things start to come your way offensively, and then you wind up eating a knee. That's why it's so dangerous for MMA fighters to even do things like boxers do, which is like a slip and a roll. You can't be slipping and rolling too deep in MMA, or else you eat a knee or you eat a kick. And that's why when you hear like the boxers talk about boxing and MMA, like, man, these strikers are all trash. They don't even have head movement. It's like, because they can't move their head like a boxer can. A boxer can go there all the way down. Floyd Mayweather against Conor McGregor was turning his back and leaning all the way down with his his chest into his thighs. Like, that's not something we can do. That's not a safe position you can get into in MMA. So it's interesting point.
Yeah, well, I've got one more point on this fight, and then we will get into another Georgian fighter.
Let's do it.
And who's actually talking about boxing, speaking of boxing.
Perfect synergy.
But I will not be giving a prediction on the Merab Sandhagen.
No.
Because Steven will be back before y'all do that.
That's right.
You can hear it here first, everybody that's watching. I'm going Sandhagen.
Let's go.
Merab's going to come in to take him down, and that knee is going to be going right up and hitting him. So
3 seconds in, like Masvidal? Not quite
no,
like that.
I'll say a later one. Yeah, 4 or 5, something like that. But y'all heard it here first. That's my take. Yeah. And then let's get into the other Georgian fighter talking about boxing.
Yeah, and Ilia Topuria, that is. And Terence Crawford, obviously, he's riding a very big high, the biggest high of his career right now. He just beat Canelo Alvarez. He's got the boxing world at the palm of his hands. Realistically, it doesn't feel to me like there's anything left for Terence Crawford, unfortunately, besides a Canelo rematch. Until you insert some fun, some MMA fighters. And look, Ilia Topuria has been talking about Terence Crawford since before the fight. As a matter of fact, he didn't even call out Canelo. He called out Terence Crawford before the fight. Now, did he do that because he thought Terence would lose and this would be an easier fight? Or did he do it because he knew Terence was going to get the jump on Canelo and he wants to be the one that inserts his name out of MMA? To be honest, I believe that a rematch with Canelo is probably what will happen next. But the next biggest thing that Terence Crawford can do is a fight with Ilia Topuria. And before I get called completely crazy for that, Ilia Topuria is the closest thing we've had to Conor McGregor since Conor McGregor. Terence Crawford isn't quite Floyd Mayweather, but his record's pretty damn similar. He's even got a win over Canelo Alvarez like Floyd Mayweather. everybody's saying, man, Terence Crawford deserves good things to happen to him. What better than to send a guy with an 0-0 professional record like Conor had over there to test him, let him win $100 million like apparently they always win in boxing matches, let Ilia get paid as well. And the reason I'm pushing for this fight to happen, I love a spectacle. I'm all for it. I think it's great when the rising tide lifts all ships. I think boxing needs some help. I believe the UFC and Dana White want to help elevate boxing, and they want to change boxing. We don't want everybody to have to be an undefeated fighter to be legit. Dana White is going to try to do what he can. I don't know how much he'll actually be able to pull off as far as getting his grip on the boxing world, but we'll see. And the only other reason I'm really high on crossover fights between MMA fighters and boxers, especially at this level, is because I saw just the other day the Paramount schedule for 2026 came out, and I'm going to be off by a couple numbers, but I'm pretty sure it's like 42 UFC events a year. Wow. 12 or 13 of them will be like pay-per-view type.
The numbered ones.
You won't pay for them, but they'll be pay-per-view, numbered events. There's like 12 power slap events that will take place. Like I think 2 seasons of Contender Series will take place. But then the biggest one, 16, maybe 20, Zuffa boxing fights.
Oh, wow.
So with that on the schedule, you have to assume Zuffa boxing's got to get active. They don't have a deep roster like they have with the UFC right now. And the best way to make a big dive into boxing is to get the eyes on the product. And I mean, whether you loved the fight, whether you love crossover fights between MMA fighters and boxers, the biggest fight of all time is Floyd Mayweather versus Conor McGregor. That's what we've been told. And I believe there's definitely still some legs to that. Tyson Fury fought Francis Ngannou. Anthony Joshua fought Francis Ngannou. We're seeing a crossover to the highest level. And I just feel like with Dana White now running Zuffa boxing and trying to take a piece of the boxing share, the floor's open. And if he's able to have some fun and do some cool events for Paramount Plus, I think they'd be more than happy to see some crossover fights.
Yeah. And for anybody looking at that fight, excited that Ilia would go in there and knock out Terence Crawford, don't fool yourself.
No.
Canelo Alvarez couldn't knock him out.
Right.
And I'm a huge Ilia fan. He's a man of God. He's a great role model for people to look at and want to be more like him.
Absolutely.
But boxing, it's not the same as MMA. The MMA fighters would win in a real fight.
Right.
But in the boxing world, Terence Crawford is not going to let the shot hit him from Ilia that would knock him out.
Right. And the only other option that people would maybe try to argue or hang their hat on with that is, well, everybody's got a puncher's chance. Not after what we saw Terence Crawford do to Canelo Alvarez.
Exactly.
He's one of Canelo Alvarez can find a shot on just about anybody. Terence Crawford didn't leave any holes open. They call it the sweet science. There is a deep science to boxing, and Terence Crawford understands boxing at a higher level than anybody that's fighting right now. And yes, Ilia Topuria, he may come in with some unorthodox angles or may try to do some hybrid boxing, if you will, and try to do some things that would work in MMA. But once you get into a boxing ring, it's a different shape. The rules are different. Everything is different. The gloves are even different. So Ilia Topuria, I want to see him get the fight. I think it would be fun. And look, like you said, he's not going to beat Terence Crawford, but he's done enough cool things in the sport. I believe Terence Crawford deserves it. I also think Ilia Topuria deserves it. And it's clear that UFC fighters don't care if they go and lose their pro boxing debut to one of the greatest of all time when that comes with $50 or $100 million. They're okay with starting their pro boxing record 0-1 when they're fighting a guy 50-0, or in this case, it would be like 42-0.
Exactly, yeah. The one event you didn't mention, how many of those jiu-jitsu events will be on Paramount Plus?
Oh, God. I forgot they brought those over. I don't know.
I think one would be too many.
Well, so I'm sure we'll see them, but I guess it's Mikey Musumeci, and they've got a few other guys. I'm excited for some of those matchups, but to be completely honest, I don't have as much interest in watching Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu specialists compete against one another. I have more fun when they bring in like an MMA fighter who loves a good scramble. Or even like what we saw over in Russia this past weekend. Arman Tsarukyan choked Benson Henderson to sleep. Like those, I can sign up for those kind of fights. But when it's like both guys touch hands and then sit on their butts and then tie up together.
Yeah.
It's for me, I'm not as much of a viewer. I sort of tune out. I need somebody to be punched,
Yeah,
kicked,
exactly,
kneed,
yeah.
elbowed, something like that. But
you know from watching the fights with me and our dad as well, the second he goes to the ground, we're screaming at the TV, stand him up.
Yeah.
Islam's not going to do anything with this guy on the ground, make him stand back up.
Which is funny because I show our dad now some clips of like high level wrestling scrambles, and he likes that. He's like, okay, this is cool. I love watching, that Giorgio Poulas guy, the young kid who's going viral. Take me down, win $1,000.
Yeah,
Now,
I've seen that. Yeah.
Now, when he goes against some Joe Schmo on the street that doesn't know anything, he just easily takes them down and scores his points and goes. But when he goes against other high level wrestlers, it's some of the most entertaining footage you can see.
Yeah.
You see him backflips and all sorts of cool rolls and stuff. I don't even know all the terminology for what they're doing, but it's awesome. So I think the more people are exposed to high level grappling and scrambles and stuff that looks really fun, it's easier to understand than the deep leg lock entanglements and stuff that some people look at as just stalling, or they don't actually understand how deep it is. I respect all that to the highest level, but at the same time, I understand how they haven't garnered that much attention because people just can't quite understand it. They can understand punches and kicks to the face. They can't understand leg locks and heel hooks.
And sitting on your butt. Yeah. But yeah, so let's get into the Conor news. We talked about it last week, but we're getting more clarity on what's happening. He straight up said he's fighting Michael Chandler on the UFC White House card. I have a fight that I'd rather see instead, but just your first takes on that.
Well, nice segue from a boxer MMA fight moving into Conor McGregor, the guy who did the boxing.
He invented
MMA.
it. Yeah.
Let's call it that.
Well, sorry, the diehards will tell me, no, there was one guy in the past, there was an MMA guy that went to boxing. I don't know his name.
James Toney.
Exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, so Conor McGregor, he pulled out of the political race that he was in Ireland. Apparently, he had like 60% of the vote, which anybody that has that much would probably be willing to stick around. But Conor's a young guy still. Maybe he's not as young in MMA, in sport, but he's still a young guy. He's not 40 years old yet. He can do a political career later in his life. Whether he decides to do that or not is on him. I'll let that be something later down the road we talk about. But I'm interested in seeing Conor McGregor's camp and lead up to this White House card, because it's felt to me like there's nothing for Conor McGregor except to come back and do something epic, right? At this point, he's beat the game. He doesn't have anything else to do. He's got the belts. He's got so many belts. He's been giving them back, you know. And obviously, he's not a true number one contender right now. But I do think Conor McGregor wants to be on that White House card because of the magnitude of the card. It's one that's going to go down in history. Obviously, they waited. It's the 250-year anniversary. He's not going to be around for the 500-year anniversary. So you might as well get it done now. And this is just one of those things where Dana White has the opportunity to up the level and potentially get some new eyes on the sport. The only other person that has been able to get eyes on the sport better than Dana White, better than a card on the White House played on like CBS television would be Conor McGregor. Without a doubt, he brought more fans to MMA than anybody else. And I believe the UFC still sees him as the top draw in the sport, even though he's not the guy that's the most active. He's not holding a belt or anything like that. He's still that guy. When Conor McGregor fights, every famous person online, their Instagram stories and all that stuff is Conor McGregor fighting. The world tunes in when Conor McGregor fights. And look, you don't always have to go off of merit. When you have these exceptional people who have done exceptional things, they've scratched your back. I mean, Conor McGregor, don't forget, he was taking fights on short notice, quick replacement fights. He did not care. Conor McGregor was that guy. He's done enough for the sport where I feel like the UFC knows his days are numbered. They don't have many more options. They don't have many more Conor shots in the chamber.
Exactly.
So they got to use him, but they also realize they pay him so much money, he can't be anything but a main event. So I'm interested in seeing where he winds up on that card, because at this point, I don't see him being anything less than a main event, which means there needs to be a belt. And now we can start to speculate on that a little bit. Max Holloway has a belt. He's got the most rare belt in all of sport. So Conor McGregor would probably like that. He also has a win over Max. So Max would probably be down to take that fight. Chandler has been waiting and dreaming of a fight with Conor McGregor.
Mr. Chandler.
Mr. Chandler. And that was the first guy that Conor called out, 2 years ago? Sitting at dinner swirling his red wine. Yeah, so that's another option. And then the only one I'm going to bring in, as I keep bringing this up because I want to see it. I'm a little bit greedy and selfish in the fact that I keep speaking this into the universe just because I want to see it happen. The 165 division.
Yes.
The UFC should open up the 165 division on the White House lawn. I also think Conor McGregor needs to be one half of that title fight. He's earned it, and all you'd have to do is move 170 welterweight up to 175, and then we've got 10-pound increments a little bit further up. And I just feel like the UFC could benefit from that because we need the 155 and 170 divisions are very stacked with not only great fighters but great names as well. And if you could add one more of those guys into the League of Champions, I really think there's more crossover. There's more triple champ opportunity. There's more. There's just more interest, I believe, around that division or around those couple of divisions. And also, we've talked about how there's a lot of guys that maybe don't fit into 155 perfectly, but they also don't fit into 170. They're a little undersized for that.
Yeah.
I think 165 would be the great middle ground for that. And if you have anybody that you think Conor McGregor should fight at the White House lawn, speak now or forever hold your peace, because we could be making the card right here, right now.
That was my fight that I was saying I would get into.
What?
Conor McGregor versus Colby Covington for the inaugural fight for the 165 belt.
Come on.
The winner, because that fight would need to have at least one American in it.
Yep.
The winner of that fight's first defense would be against Charles Oliveira.
Okay.
Because he's missed weight at 155 as well.
Yep.
So I think that's how you build your 165 division.
So Colby Covington versus Conor McGregor, inaugural 165 belt at the White House.
Yep.
I guess Colby Covington is probably a shoe-in for that card. I mean, he should
be a shoe-in for the main event.
Yeah,
you know?
He just needs to keep winning and doing it impressively, and then he could actually be there. But the only other option would be some sort of anomaly like this, like open up the 165 division. And again, Dana White doesn't let us in on all the information. He likes to keep some things close to the vest. Great poker player.
Yeah.
Apparently, he's knocking Vegas off every weekend for tons of money. So he tries to keep things close to the vest, but he said what is going to happen at the White House lawn is going to blow your mind. It's going to be the greatest UFC event of all time. And Dana White doesn't like to make promises that he can't keep. Now, I don't know how you can up yourself any other way besides starting a new division.
Yeah.
And again, Conor McGregor isn't who he used to be. But when it comes to numbers, when it comes to pay-per-view buys or viewership, spectator numbers, still to this day, nobody can touch what Conor McGregor can do, even if he takes all these years off and all the stuff that he's been doing, his workouts in the closet, all of that sort of stuff doesn't matter because he still shows up and will probably break his own records or at least one of his top few records when he makes his return, especially if it's at the White House.
Yeah. And I think this one will break the numbers. Take away every fighter that's going to be on it. People are going to buy it just because it's at the White House.
True.
And you're walking out of the Oval Office to get to the cage.
That's going to be epic.
That's insane. Yeah. And I'll throw this in. It's this little side note. At least one fighter needs to take this advice. Walk out to Tom McDonald. His song "American Flags."
Oh wow!
It'll hype you up if you listen to it. But it would be such the event and everything. The 4th of July. That would be the song to walk out to.
I hear you. Yeah. I have a feeling
I'll show it to you after this.
I'll have to check that one out, but I'm sure there's going to be some pretty epic walkout songs.
Exactly.
Maybe a Born in the USA.
Yeah,
that'd be a good one. But there's all sorts of fun things. I believe the UFC will make this the spectacle you can't miss. And it's been such a long time coming. You know, not that long ago, there were people lobbying against MMA, calling it human cockfighting, saying it had no place on television. It had no place in sport.
Yeah.
And now it's the fastest growing sport in the world. It just garners so much attention. Even the highest level athletes who play other sports at a very high level, they're drawn into the fight. They're drawn into these characters because it's mano a mano. It's a one-man thing, and there's no excuses. The guys that are in the UFC, they live, like you said about Ilia Topuria, they're just role models. You know, you can be an NFL all-star, but you see Ilia Topuria fight and you show your son when he's 12, 11 years old, whatever, you go, that's how you want to act. That's how you want to conduct yourself in life.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of lessons learned, even just from fighting. And I think that the world in general is a little bit more open to accepting MMA. We're seeing it more, bans get lifted and countries allow it more and more. So I think this is a great way for the world to see mixed martial arts, not as some human cockfighting thing, not as too gory, but a high level sport that can be enjoyed with conflict followed by conflict resolution, which is exactly what everybody likes, not just in sport, but in all aspects of entertainment. If I'm going to watch a TV show, I need to know what the problem is, and I need the problem to be solved by the time that the episode's over, right? So that's kind of what you get with UFC. Every 15 minutes, another story comes out.
Exactly.
Right? And then when the main event comes out, there's a belt on the line, and instead of 15-minute story, it's a 25-minute story.
Exactly, so, And while we're on the UFC White House, let's stay in Washington, D.C. for a second. It's ridiculous that it's those people in Washington. Nothing against them. Yeah. They're great at being politicians. Sure. But they don't know a damn thing about MMA. You know, if they really felt that it was human cockfighting and it was dangerous, they'd be going after boxing way more than MMA, because boxing is more dangerous, whether anybody wants to admit that or not.
It's way more dangerous and way more corrupt. And there's way more issues with boxing. But
there's way more politics in it, if you will.
Exactly.
But I did mention that Charles Oliveira would be a great 165 guy. And that kind of segues us into our last topic. Who the hell is he fighting at UFC? Was it Rio?
Yeah. Well, that's his homecoming, right? Well, he's going back to Brazil, and they go to Brazil maybe, once a year. Charles Oliveira is a big deal, especially when he goes to Brazil. Do Bronx is just as big as it gets down there. And Rafael Fiziev felt like the perfect opponent for him. I thought this was going to be an awesome fight. Rafael Fiziev always shows up. You know, he's had some injuries and some setbacks that made me question his ability to ever get to the belt, but there was a time where I thought Fiziev was for sure like the next the first guy up in the next generation of 155ers.
Exactly, yeah.
It hasn't panned out that way, but the fact that he got booked with Charles Oliveira tells you where they still see his skills at. And look, Charles Oliveira deserves to go on this on this Rio card. He needs to be on it. I feel like that would be a big a big pop of the balloon if he got pulled off of that card. But at the same time, you can't just replace him with anybody. It's got to be somebody good in the 155 division that people think maybe can beat him, but also will give an entertaining fight. You know, the Brazilian fans, they want to go out there and they're very passionate about their fighters. So I don't know who will step in. I'm curious if they will even keep Charles on the card, or if they'll kick the can and push till the Paramount Plus days happen, and then they have another great fight lined up for their start of the schedule over in 2026. I don't know, but there's a few options. I would say, I don't know. Who do you think he should go against?
So I've been reading some articles about it. Our friends over at Homa Fight have been talking about their friend who is on part of Homa Fight.
The money man?
Hanato Moicano. That's right. He's saying he would like to take it. And I've also heard Charles saying, I don't think he said this about Hanato, but a lot of these guys at 155 saying, I'll take it. They just want clicks on social media.
Yeah.
Charles has said, look, the UFC's reached out to multiple people saying that. I won't name any names. They're all saying they can't make the weight in time. Charles even went as far as to say one of them said he had a bellyache and they don't want the fight. So Hanato, the reason I say I don't think he's one of them is because I don't think he's one of them.
No.
He's ready to fight. And that would be a great one for a UFC Brazil card.
Yeah.
But it also would be great if the timing's not right, a Paramount UFC card, one of the first ones. That would get people that don't know much about it really hooked on it, because that would be an exciting fight.
Yeah, if you put them on one of the CBS cards where they play it on like actual television, that'd be a good one. Yeah, and I want to see Charles Oliveira back in there, but I don't have to rush it. We don't have to force him in there. Now, Moicano would take the fight. I can tell you there's probably people that have said no behind closed doors and didn't sign the contract. Moicano signed a contract to fight Islam Makhachev on short notice. Yeah. He's, no offense to Charles Oliveira, but he's not Islam Makhachev.
Yeah.
And Moicano certainly knows going into that he's got a better chance at winning that fight than he did against Islam. So I don't know how they'll go about it, but I certainly think if Moicano wants the fight and he makes enough noise, he will get the fight. When you do things for the UFC, they do things in return for you. And while he took a title fight on short notice when he had realistically no chance of winning. And then the other thing, I don't really think it gives him that many brownie points, but he also didn't take that settlement money. Yeah. They might look at it as like, hey, here's another payday since you didn't take that. Exactly, by the way, this will be way more than what you would have made on that anyways. But exactly. I think Moicano is probably a good one. Gamrot's the first one that came to mind, but at the same time, I think Moicano, obviously he's a guy that people like. He's brash. He says great things on the microphone. The press conference would be a lot of fun because I don't think he'd show a lot of disrespect, but he would also speak with his brash confidence and try to get under Oliveira's skin a little bit. So I think that's probably the best direction they could go with Charles.
Yeah. And maybe Gamrot was the one with the bellyache. We'll never know.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of a little lost on this one. Who else would be some options besides Gamrot? Yeah, Renato Moicano. I'm really drawing a blank, honestly.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot out there, and we've got the sweepstakes at the top, right? What's Ilia going to do? Who's he going to defend against? Arman keeps coming out saying it's not him. I believe Dan Hooker and Arman probably have some business. If not, I think it's Arman and Patty. And if that's the case, then Justin Gaethje's going to get the Ilia fight. It'll be probably the first Paramount numbered event in 2026. That's my guess, but you just don't know, and maybe this fight could insert one of these guys back into title talks. Now they'd probably need to do one more fight after that, but there's so many moving parts at 155 right now and so many questions left unanswered that we sort of just need to wait and see what they're going to do with the champ, what they're going to do with the three guys that believe they're all the number one contenders, and then we've got this sort of sweepstakes of legends, and there's also a little bit of an anomaly belt left in there with Max Holloway, and you've got Charles Oliveira, Renato Moicano. These sort of guys can mix it up and have some fun, but at the same time, I don't know which direction the UFC is going to aim their guns when they're ready to make the announcement, but I have a feeling you might be right, it's Renato Moicano.
Yeah, and that actually brought up a good point. The frickin' Holloway Oliveira for the BMF, it sucks that that's not a pay-per-view event, because they're not going to put that on UFC Brazil, a fight night card.
Right.
But that would be a lot of fun.
The fans would absolutely be down for that.
Yeah. Well, cool.
That's it.
That's it for today.